Classroom is here for you. It helps you in all you do. It helps you know you do. So tune in and now enjoy the fun. It's time for English, everyone. Studio Classroom is on the air. You can watch it everywhere. English is the way to go. So join us now, enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to Studio Classroom. We're so glad you're here today. I'm Anne-Marie.
And I'm Gabe. Today is a great day to learn something new.
So let's do that together. We are on our lesson, How Trust Can Help Our Elders. And we have something we want to talk about before we get into our lesson today. And that is, what is something that you've learned about finances that you think everybody should know?
Okay, well, I mentioned it a little bit yesterday. That's the idea of investing. So basically, as early as you can, when you start having some income and you have some savings, you've paid off your debt and you have an emergency fund, start investing every month if you can. Another thing that I learned from a podcast is that wealth disappears by the third generation.
Oh, interesting.
As in, if someone is like a millionaire, has a ton of money, right? Maybe they'll pass that on to their kids, and they'll probably pass that on to their kids. However, what I got from that statistic is that it's up to each individual to do what they're going to do with their wealth. You can't just rely on someone's wealth being passed to you to develop good habits, for example. And the same goes with maybe if you didn't get a good inheritance, like a big inheritance, it's okay. You can still do something with your life to make more for yourself and for the future generations.
That's a really good point. That kind of ties into what I've learned about finances over the years, and that's just to be very aware of your own finances and aware of what you're spending. Something that my husband and I have done off and on over the years is track how much we're spending in different areas. And we don't do it all the time, but once in a while it's good to check. What we do is we bring all of our receipts home and we write down every single thing we spend every single day and see over the big picture what we're actually spending our money on. And sometimes you think you're spending money on like a lot of money in one area, but you actually aren't. And sometimes the opposite is true as well. You don't realize how much money you're spending in a certain area.
Yeah, it's true. Well, friends, what kinds of things about finances have you learned over the years that maybe somebody else could benefit from? Our lesson, hopefully, is beneficial to you. We're talking about trust and how they can help our elders. Let's get right into it.
Trusts can help our elders. The Trust Department of Taiwan Business Bank has an award-winning plan to make trusts more accessible to everyone. By combining the government's Trust 2.0 and Urban Renewal 2.0 plans, they can ensure a secure future for the society's elders. Building with trusts. Urban renewal is an expensive and complicated process. The common situation is that the house cannot be successfully built, or the developer sells the property to different buyers.
Hello everyone, welcome to Language Lab. I'm Jack. 我们先来看 ensure 这个动词，它的意思是确保。譬如 The nurses in the emergency room try and ensure that patients are seen as quickly as possible. 急诊室的护士努力确保病人能尽快地受到医生的诊治。或者 To ensure that your meat is tender, cover it when it is roasting in the oven. 为了确保肉质鲜嫩，烤的时候要把烤箱的盖子盖上。再举个例句 Police lined the streets to ensure that the demonstration was peaceful. 警察在街上排成一排，以确保示威活动和平进行。
All right, let's get right into our article here. We read, the Trust Department of Taiwan Business Bank has an award-winning plan to make trusts more accessible to everyone. By combining the government's Trust 2.0 and Urban Renewal 2.0 plans, they can ensure a secure future for society's elders. Well, you might notice there, friends, that I did not read that 2.0 because we don't usually say that, do we?
Yeah, I think you're right. 2.0, 2.0. Yeah, it's mostly 2.0. Now, when might we use this 2.0 or 3.0? When a company or a system or something has an upgrade. And so the first system, the original one, might not even have a number behind it at all, right? But then when the company has decided to upgrade, they've decided to give it this name 2.0 to let everyone know about the upgrade and that it's different from the original.
That's right. Well, we also learned about that word insure in our language lab today, and that word sounds an awful lot like another word, insure.
I think I know what word you mean, insure, right? So ensure and insure sound very similar. They're almost homonyms, but one begins with the sound N, the other with the sound in, right? So ensure, as Jack said, is to make sure of something or to make other people sure of something. Insure refers to insurance most of the time. So if you get insurance, then you are getting insured.
Okay, well, we are going to move to the next section here where we read, building with trusts. Urban renewal is an expensive and complicated process. The common situation is that the house cannot be successfully built or the developer sells the property to different buyers. When I read this the first time, I wasn't quite sure who the developer was, so I looked it up. This is talking about the property developer. This is a person or company that makes money by building houses or by renovating existing properties that are for sale.
Okay, so that's the developer.
Yes.
And we have a problem here in this paragraph, right? So it's a complicated process and the house cannot be successfully built or the developer sells the property to different buyers. So that's not just one buyer who's buying the property. It sounds like things could get complicated right there.
It definitely sounds like a very complicated process. And we're going to find out how these trusts protect against that in a moment, right after this.
Hello friends, welcome to InfoCloud. Hey Rex, as a singer and a voice teacher, have you ever had a student who really impressed you with their singing?
I had a student who is in her 50s. She came to me for singing lessons and she practiced hard and got really good in a very short time.
You know how they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks? It's clearly not true then.
That expression refers to older people who refuse to learn new things, sometimes because of old habits, fear, or pride. Now, that is an interesting expression that we can talk more about.
While old dog refers to older people in this expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks is not meant to insult people of old age. It is just describing a common phenomenon in society.
Personally, I believe you can teach an old dog new tricks. It just depends on whether or not the person has the will to learn. I've seen a lot of young people who refuse to learn new things.
Hopefully that is not you when it comes to learning English. We believe if you put in the work and practice, your English will improve little by little each and every day.
有时候上了年纪的人比较没有办法很快的学习新的事物。西方人会说 "You can't teach an old dog new tricks"， 字面上是你没有办法教一只老狗新的把戏。听起来好像有一点轻蔑的意味，但是这句话绝对没有侮辱老人的意思，只是在形容一种常见的现象。虽然一般认为老年人学东西比较慢， 但那通常是因为学习动机不足，或者是被老旧的观念跟习惯绑住了，跟学习能力不一定有直接的关系。我们相信活到老学到老，只要肯学习，一定可以学得起来。这就是今天的 InfoCloud， 我们下次云端见。
Trusts can help our elders. The trust's protection mechanism can oversee the use of the designated fund throughout the building process and ensure the safety of the transaction. That way, the elderly can live with peace of mind. Long-term care integrated with trust. The government's Long-Term Care 2.0 plan is a social welfare policy to help provide seniors with long-term care. Trusts are especially useful for protecting children or providing long-term care for the elderly.
接着我们来看 oversee 这个动词，它的意思是监督、监管。譬如 Jeremy's lawyer will oversee his finances until Jeremy turns 21. Jeremy 的律师将监管他的财务，直到他满21岁为止。或者是 Barrett oversees a $64 million online business. Barrett 负责管理价值6400万美元的线上业务。再举一个例句 Nick reports to the supervisor every Monday since our project is overseen by him. Nick 每周一向主管汇报，因为我们的专案是由他监督管理的。
All right, let's find out how trust can protect against this complicated process. We read the trust protection mechanism can oversee the use of the designated fund throughout the building process and ensure the safety of the transaction. All right, there is a lot going on in that sentence, so let's break it down here. Let's talk about what a mechanism is first.
A mechanism usually makes me think of something that has to do with machines, because I believe that's where the word mechanism came from. There's some kind of machine involved in the process. However, we do use the word mechanism to talk about something that is part of a system. It's built into the system to work a certain way, right? And so that's what we're talking about here with the trust protection mechanism. It's this thing that has to deal with the protection that the trust is providing.
All right, so now we also have the word designated here. Now, designated here just means this amount of money is set aside for a specific purpose. So this money has been set aside throughout the building process and ensure the safety of the transaction.
Do you know how else we use the word designated?
Are you thinking of a designated driver?
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't that remind you of college days?
Yeah, anytime I hear that word, that's automatically what I think of. A designated driver is somebody who goes with their friends to maybe a party or a get-together or a bar, and they specifically decide that they're not going to drink that night so that they can drive everyone home safely.
That's right. That's the designated driver. Or someone might say, oh, he's our DD, so he's not drinking tonight. Designated driver. It's important to have one at a party, friends, if everybody else is drinking. Well, we read on here, that way the elderly can live with peace of mind. We're talking about how they're ensuring the safety of the transaction. It's very important to have peace of mind about something. That means you're not worried or anxious about something.
All right, well, we find out here the government's Long-Term Care 2.0 plan is a social welfare policy to help provide seniors with long-term care. There's another word that we use to talk about elders, that word seniors there. I almost always think of the word senior discount when I hear the word senior. That's when you're over a certain age, you get special discounts on certain products or certain services or even food.
Exactly. It's something to look forward to for when you're a senior. Whether you're young or old or elderly or youthful right now, it is time for us all to enjoy something fun with today's Fun Facts.
Hello, fact friends. I'm Detective Ernest Finder, and I have a very fun and mysterious fact for you today. Did you know that trusts are a historical thing? It's true. Almost 1,000 years ago, trusts became an official law in England. The king decided that while someone was away fighting a war, their land would still belong to them. But it could be used by others to grow food. Hopefully some cool food like pizza, right? Anyway, that's today's fun fact.
Trusts can help our elders. Seniors who don't plan in advance for retirement can become a burden to their families. Even worse, they are more vulnerable to scams, and their pensions could be stolen by their children. But by using the Care Trust, seniors can avoid those risks. The Trust 2.0 plan includes the Care Trust, which helps seniors cover their medical expenses and long-term care costs. Our seniors are precious to our communities, so choose a trust you can trust to protect the elders in your family.
“好的，接下来看 retirement 这个名词，它的意思是退休。譬如 ，After their retirement, Molly and Miles decided to travel around the world. Molly 和 Miles 退休之后，决定去环游世界。或者是 Many people took early retirement during the pandemic. 许多人在疫情期间提前退休了。Retirement 的动词是 retire， 例如。People in our company usually retire by the time they are 77. 我们公司的人通常在77岁时退休。最后来看 vulnerable 这个形容词，意思是脆弱的、容易受伤害的。譬如 Marcy works with vulnerable groups of people. Marcy 和弱势群体一起工作。或者是 No traffic is allowed on this bridge.Because it was deemed vulnerable following the earthquake. 这座桥禁止通行，因为地震过后，这座桥梁应该很脆弱。再举一个例句 ：Deer are vulnerable to attack by other wild animals. 鹿很容易受到其他野生动物的攻击。
All right, let's finish out our lesson here, friends. We read seniors who don't plan in advance for retirement can become a burden to their families. Well, that sounds really sad here. Let's talk about the phrase in advance. What happens if you do something in advance?
That means you do it before or ahead of time, right? It's very important to plan some things in advance. For example, if you're traveling somewhere, and there's something very special you want to do, but only a certain amount of people can do it on a certain night, then you need to plan in advance. Otherwise, you might not be able to reserve that place, right? Or reserve that spot. You need to reserve in advance.
And that's the same thing you need to do with popular restaurants, too. If you want to eat at that popular restaurant, you need to reserve a table in advance.
Exactly. Think of another situation where you need to do something in advance. So we read on here, even worse, they are more vulnerable to scams. Now that word vulnerable means that they're open to weakness of some kind, that maybe it's possible for somebody to take advantage of them or harm them in some way.
When I say the word vulnerable, I usually think of babies or a baby animal that's just been born. Usually young children and baby animals are very vulnerable. They have to be taken care of by their mothers.
It's true, and that just reminds me of the idea of babies in general, whether they've been born or before they're born, They're actually the most vulnerable of our population, so we do need to take care of them. Well, let's continue here. Their pensions could be stolen by their children, and by using the Care Trust, seniors can avoid those risks. Okay, so the Trust 2.0 plan includes the Care Trust, which helps seniors cover their medical expenses and long-term care costs. And often we talk about expenses like this. You need to have enough funds or money to cover your expenses. That means to pay for them.
That's right. Our lesson ends by saying our seniors are precious to our communities, so choose a trust you can trust to protect the elders in your family. Well, we've been talking a lot about trust the last 2 days, and so we had a question for some of our teachers. Would you ever consider using a trust to help your family? Let's find out how they answered.
Would I ever consider using a trust? Trust is important in families, but we are not talking about trust here. We're talking about a trust, and that's a totally different thing. I wouldn't plan on using a trust to help my family, but over the years, what has seemed to be important is having choice, because there are all kinds of different families in all kinds of different situations, and so it's important for the institutions, things like banks and governments and educational organizations, things like that, to have options ready for people who might need those options. And I would say trusts are a good example of that. There's all kinds of people in situations where a trust might be exactly what they need and they're looking for, even if it isn't part of my plan.
Oh. You know, I would think about using a trust to help my family, but I haven't thought about it much. I'm really far from retiring. I still have many years of work, but I think it would be a good idea when I get older. That way, any money that I've saved up, I can make sure it goes to my children. Trusts can be a great way for money to pass to your kids really quickly once you pass away. And it won't get taxed as much. That means you're helping your family. You're helping them with all the things they need to pay for when you're not around to help them out. So a trust can be a great way to help your family.
Well, as we finish out our lesson today, there's something that I want to take another look at, and that is the phrase here, peace of mind. And that kind of makes me think of a sense of security. Trusts are one way that elders can have a sense of security, but there are many other ways in our lives that we could have a sense of security too. So let's talk about that for a minute. Gabe, what is something in your life that gives you a sense of security?
Anne-Marie, I usually think in terms of two categories with having peace of mind. One is things that have to do with everything here on earth, right? So for example, when it comes time to paying taxes, I've hired a tax preparer for me to do my taxes because, man, there's just so many things I don't understand about filling out a tax form.
Taxes are difficult.
And so that gives me a peace of mind knowing that a professional is in charge of that.
That makes sense.
Right? But the fact is, some things here on earth are just going to fall apart, or they're not going to act the way that you expect them to. There's no guarantee for a lot of things in life. Not even a guarantee that we will have tomorrow, right? And so there's another thing that gives me a peace of mind, and that is my hope for eternity.
Oh, so how can you have a peace of mind when it comes to eternity?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer for me and for a lot of people is in the Bible. You know, God tells us about how He loves us and how He provided a way for us to be saved and have a relationship with Him. And the writers of the New Testament spend a lot of time talking about the assurance that we have of our hope for eternity and the fact that God is in control even when terrible things happen in life, and He does have a purpose and plan for those things. That does give me a deeper peace of mind, or deeper sense of a peace of mind.
That is such an important thing for us to think about today, friends. Do you have a peace of mind and a sense of security when it comes to eternity? It's something you should think about and talk about in English. We'll see you next time right here on Studio Classroom.
Lasts a lifetime. I am so proud to have you in my life. A good friend lasts a lifetime.